Hello, this is Kevin Cordy, that crazy practitioner of play. Welcome to Debut, where we're working with Artists Standing Strong and Artists Standing Strong Camp. And this is the interview series. And I am more than jazzed about this interview series because today you not only have one teller, but you have four amazing youth tellers. Starting at a young age in storytelling will only move them forward in the storytelling tradition. And honestly, we have so much to learn from them. I'd like to introduce our first storyteller. Nabil is 13 years old. He's from Bahrain, and he can be found on storytelling and the soccer field. You're going to find out more about him. He likes video games. I don't know if it's Halo or Mario Kart, but we might find out. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Nabil. Peace. Nabil, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good, thanks. How are you?
Good. I'm not bad at all. We're so glad that you could take some time out of that busy schedule to talk to us. Welcome to Debut, the fusion of storytelling and play. So tell us a little bit about you as a storyteller.
Well, I've been really into storytelling, since I was young. I used to read stories and then I would tell them to other people. But storytelling was my only hobby, of course. I played a lot of sports. I loved swimming. I used to even practice swimming with a coach back from when I was 6 or something. I also play other sports, I like to go biking. I recently got a new road bike, so now I can bike for a lot longer because it's easier, lighter, you can move faster with it. I also enjoy to play football or soccer, and to be honest, soccer is more of a side hobby now with Corona and COVID, because I don't really get a chance to play with others because I don't interact with many people because of the virus.
And all of those things can make for great stories. And unfortunately, the COVID can make a good story as well. Because imagine, 10 years from now, where you'll say COVID is no longer there, but let me tell you what it was like to people who are younger. It's a way that we pass on our history, right? Do your teachers tell stories? Or should they?
A few of them used to, because it was just more like lessons, especially my Islamic teacher, Islamic studies. He used to tell us stories that would be more raising your spirit or motivate people to do stuff, stories with a moral, basically.
Sure. And, stories are the greatest teachers. Some of the greatest people told stories, and they, Aesop himself never put a moral at the end of the stories. The editor did. He said that people will get the stories, which always surprised me. And so stories can teach us. How did you find yourself going into story?
It's actually a pretty funny story. So my mother, she used to do these things called the AIR conferences. One of the conferences she used to do was, or attend, was this unschooling thing. It was basically around the start of COVID. That's where she met Karen Golden. She introduced my mother to her workshops, like storytelling and some other thing. I remember you contemporary world history class or something. Yeah. And then after that, I attended the storytelling camp. I really enjoyed it. So I told the story about it was a reinterpretation of a folk tale called The Sound of Money. It was, I made different characters, but basically after that I really enjoyed it, so I attended the camp again, and that's when Kevin Cordy found me and invited me to this debut.
Excellent. And that story, The Sound of Money, what I love about that story is it's steeped in Jewish tradition, but many other cultures. have a version of that story. So it's great to see that story passes around everywhere. And we're so glad to have you on Debut. So let me ask you, what do you think about being on Debut?
Well, it's based, I think it's a bunch of different things at once. Like, I'm really glad that I'm doing it, but also, I don't usually do things around a large audience, so that would be a really cool experience for me, to do. But to be honest, I don't really have much to say because I don't know what to expect.
And that's quite all right. Just as long as we're in the position to play and have fun, that's all we're worried about. But we are honored that you're going to be on Debut. And Nabil, as a youth storyteller, I often talk to people that say, "Hey, will storytelling continue? And what's the next tradition?" And I don't worry about it because I know in the hands of youth it will continue. Where do you see that storytelling in your future?
Mm, Probably if I ever have like a family or something, like I get married or something, and then I would probably be telling stories to my kids. That would be an interesting thing. Telling stories, I'll probably find some opportunity to do it. I'm not going to go for that as my profession because I have a lot of other exciting careers that I'm probably going to try to pursue. So my future's still like unwritten. So
And that's the best way it can be. But I think I can safely say, just from talking with you, that whatever you choose, to be a professional soccer player or an astronaut, then I think you'll be telling stories about it, and we'll be telling stories about you. Nabil, it has been a great honor and pleasure to have you. We look forward to seeing you on Debut.
thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, not just one teller, we have our next teller. Let me tell you about Rhea. Rhea is 11 years old. She resides in Boston, Massachusetts. She also has attended youth storytelling camp. She's been active in their program for a while. I hear her stories are captivating. Let me bring on, ladies and gentlemen, Rhea Schulman. Rhea, good to see you. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad at all. I'm actually jazzed that you're here on Debut. Now tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm really creative. I like a lot of creative. I like the arts, like all of them. I love to read, especially like graphic novels. I really like the author Rhea Schulman.
Oh, yes, yes. Smile. Very good. Wonderful graphic novels. Just another way of telling a story, a visual story. And there's a great series. Have you read Dork Diaries? Is also really good, which is a different version of Diary of Wimpy Kid. So tell us, you also like to tell stories, is that right?
Yeah.
And what brought you to Artist Standing Strong Camp?
Well, when I was in first grade, I like writing a lot of stories, and I actually got awarded the storytelling award.
Oh, wow.
I liked it, except the one downside is I got for pride a big box of workbooks I didn't like, but it motivated me to keep going. And my mom is actually a storyteller, so back last winter, I got invited to go do Youth Standing Strong camp, and I did, and I've done it 2 other times since then.
Well, that was super cool. And honestly, every book doesn't meet the author. And it's good that you have a discerning taste, that you're like, oh wow, I can look and I can find more stories. What kind of stories do you like to tell or read?
I like to tell a lot of adventure stories, some scary, a lot of space. I really like to tell space stories.
Sure. No, who doesn't like a scary story, right? So, sometimes it's good to chill our bones a little bit. And you know, we're going to do play in story. Have you worked with play a lot?
Not really, but I'm really excited about it. It sounds really interesting.
And we're excited about having you on debut, where we tell stories and people will give you different advice and suggestions. How often do you get to be in a circle where you get feedback on your stories?
Not that often, but I'm really excited for the experience.
Great. And you said your mom's a storyteller, so you probably hear a lot of stories too, yeah?
Yeah.
That must be fun. What advice would you have for teachers or educators on using stories?
I would say that when you add stories to your lessons, you get the kids more motivated and they find them a lot more interesting and take more out of it.
And especially during times like COVID or that type of thing, if you're telling and listening to stories, you're going to capture their attention. Rhea, it has been so much fun talking to you. I'll ask you a question that I asked Nabil. Where do you see storytelling in your future?
I see it as a way to entertain people and have fun. I don't really have purpose, I just do it for fun because I really enjoy it and I like seeing the smiles on everybody's faces.
That is so great. Anything else you want to add to the interview today?
No, but thanks for having me.
Thank you. It has been our honor to have you on the debut interview series. And like I said, it doesn't stop here. We have 2 more tellers, and I'm so excited about both of them. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring in our next teller. She's 11 years old, and she's recently moved to North Carolina. She's performed in front of hundreds at a Kwanzaa celebration organized by the Griot Circle of Maryland. That alone. But she also loves to cook and draw, and she's well worth listening to. Let me bring on Hajar Ismail. And here she comes. Hey, how you doing?
Hello, Kevin, and I'm far from 11. My birthday is in December. I'm 10.
Oh goodness! Well, you strike me as older, so we'll keep that there. But I'll put that there. I don't know why I did that. But well, tell us a little bit about you.
My name is Conjure. I was born in Rockville, Maryland. I've spent most of my years in Maryland. I've lived there for 8 years.
Oh, I see. And you recently moved to North Carolina. What's strikingly different, even though it's COVID and we see things through screens now? But go ahead.
What's new? Well, it's harder to make friends, definitely because of the COVID and the quarantine.
Sure, and we definitely understand that. And as soon as that lifts, I'm sure you're going to make plenty of friends. And one way we make friends is through stories.
The first year in Charlotte, there was no snow. The second year, there was snow. It was too cold.
I understand. That's a reason to stay inside. So what brought you to storytelling?
So, I was taking computer classes in the library, and then my mom saw an advertisement for a growing Rio literacy learning program. So she signed me up, and that's how I got into storytelling, because we would learn about history and tell stories.
I absolutely love that. And the honor of, I don't know if our viewers know that a griot is a high honor of a teller in the African American tradition. And what a beautiful circle to have people that you grow with stories, and they tell you the history. Sometimes we just tell the stories and we don't know the connections. Do you think those connections are important? Good. What kind of stories do you like to tell?
Fiction.
Fiction. Oh, yes. And you read a lot of fiction?
Yes. One time I did tell I did retell an biography.
So not an autobiography, but a biography.
Yes.
And which one was it?
Stacey Abrams.
Oh, I love it. She has a new children's book out. Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, well, we'll have to look into that. Definitely worth checking out. And she's a champion, isn't she? Very good. And one way we honor people is by telling their stories. There is an African proverb that says a person is not forgotten as long as we're telling stories about them. So if I'm hearing you right, you also see stories as a way of helping others learn. Is that right?
Yes, kind of. I tell stories to my cousins and friends in Niger, and because they speak French, they don't exactly know English. So
And
that's why helping them learn.
I love that. I mean, because sometimes we just see stories as entertainment, but we're seeing through you that they also help people learn, whether words, concepts, ideas, or histories. What a beautiful thing. How did you find yourself at Artist Storytelling Strong Camp?
So it was when we moved, I think. My mom also saw the program, and she signed me up. Um, and she signed me up. So then we started learning, telling stories. I think it was only Mondays that we would share and have events, and we told stories. So I really liked that.
I love it. And what's it like? Go ahead, sorry.
I've been in Artist Standing Strong for 2 years now.
Wonderful. What's it like to be in a community of kids and young people that share the same goal of telling stories?
Well, it's great. It's nice to know that there are many others just like me.
Excellent. I'm going to ask you,
Share stories.
and doing that at such a young age, it's only going to help you and others that you tell stories with, for, and by. I'll ask you that question. Where do you see storytelling in your future?
Storytelling, I see it to speak up for your own rights.
Oh wow, I love that. Story is advocacy and speaking up for who you are. One of my students that I used to teach said, every story that you tell has a little bit of you in it. And you just remind me of that. I want to thank you so much for being on Debut. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's all.
Thank you very much. And the telling continues. We have our next teller. And let me tell you a little bit about her. She's 14 years old. She's in India. She's been actively working and addressing challenges. We heard that story can be a way of advocacy, and by no means is this not unheard by our next teller. She looks at issues of mental health, and she works against those misconceptions. She also works as a published author of 3 books of anthology and poetry. Wow, she wrestles with words, and I'm sure she plays with words, and we are so glad to have her here. We want to welcome Nisa Puhan. Nisa, how you doing?
I'm good, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me here, and I'm just so happy to be here.
It is so wonderful to have you here, and I love the way that you work with words, both in print and in spoken tradition. Can you speak a little to that?
Yeah, sure. I'm just another teenager who's trying to sail through life using different anchors. So, let me just go back to normal. Hi everyone, my name is Nisa Panhani, and I know for a fact that leap year people don't have their birthday this year. But, well, I've been on planet Earth in New Delhi, India for 14 years now. I find my ikigai in music, reading, writing, and most importantly, being a dog mom. Passionately, as Kevin very nicely said, I've been trying to break the stigma around fear, perception, and to create mental health awareness amongst people since March 2021 with the help of my podcast called Open Up by Sofa and blogs that are mainly around the realm of overcoming judgment and, of course, how to be your own bright place. And most importantly, accepting the fact that just as the moon, we too go through phases. And it's okay.
I love that. Just as the moon, we too go through phases. And we can answer and address these issues by helping others tell their stories, by telling their stories. And we really need advocates such as yourself, but also your own voice, and your voice in poetry, and your voice in story, and coming from a storytelling tradition, knowing your parents.
Thank you. So, yes, my parents, yes, they're one of the main reasons why I moved into storytelling, because having storyteller parents is like having a flood of stories that you can really never escape and really never want to escape. So I guess that was also better.
I love what you say there. I was raised on stories too. We only traveled to like 2 states, and most of the other places was through my mother's and father's words. And so it's the cheapest way of getting a ticket to somewhere.
Definitely.
So what brought you to Artist Storytelling Strong Camp?
So, don't all of us have a story? As you were saying, I was just trying to find the answer to this, and I realized that stories have the power to heal, to bring a smile to anyone's face, and most importantly, to connect. And boom, that is what showed me that without sharing stories, we can never go forward in life. And my mom, she was very, very fond of Andrea, and they were connected. And so when they were just having a call, like what we are doing right now, and I just peeked in and I said, "What are you talking about? Are you talking about storytelling? Can I join?" And so I discovered this camp, and I was just so thrilled to be there because I met with so many people. I met with Claudia Hearscrow, who I fondly like to call Abuela. So we really connected very, very well, and then it's the rest is just a story. So
and stories bring community. Yeah, you share that in that story. What challenges you about the art of storytelling?
Well, sorry, I couldn't get that. Could you
Sorry.
repeat your question?
What challenges you in the art of storytelling?
In the art of storytelling, I feel that it's like being on a journey, and with a bag full of everything, ranging from personal narratives to comedy that makes you cry. And just the fact that having people around you is actually a big thing to keep you going. The thing that just says that this is your challenge, you have to fulfill it. So I think that is one of the biggest things that has kept me going, and also has been like a challenge that I want to complete. So I think that sounds
Well,
good.
I think you dive into challenges and you look for the good hearts in others in the journey, and we see it in you. I'll ask you this question: where do you see storytelling in your future?
As I said before, and as we've all been saying before, stories are the only way we can really connect. And I personally feel that as I will grow up, I will want to have people to understand this, besides the people who are part of this community. And I think I want to have a cycle that continues and never stops. I feel that without stories, life really wouldn't be the same. There won't be, "Oh, that reminds me, I have to tell you a story," in every single conversation. Or, "Oh my God, did you hear that story? It just made me laugh out loud." And so much more really. And the only way I can do this is by continuing to share stories, and by sharing the motto that I personally like to follow, which is share the story. I think that is what I think the future might be for storytelling, but well, let's see what's next.
Well, Nisa, you already have me as an advocate and down the journey, and I so appreciate that. And I'm not worried about the future when people like you are moving it forward.
Thank you so much.
Nisa, thank you so much. We're going to bring everybody back on board. Let us bring Nabil. All right. Let us bring Rhea. And Hajar, as soon as she comes back on, we'll be fine. But we're going to leave with this whole idea of one. I want you to think of one piece of advice that you could give fellow youth tellers or people who work with youth. And Hajar coming in. One piece of advice that you can give youth or people who work with youth in storytelling, or just something you want to end us with. Because you're all wonderful and you're amazing. And I look forward to working and playing with you when you come to debut an Artist Standing Strong. You are the first youth ever on debut. You won't be the last because I think you're going to pave the way. Let's start with Nabil.
Thank you, Kevin. So I think my piece of advice to any youth who's trying to tell stories is don't worry about the people that are working with you or that if you're going to make mistakes or not. Just worry about having fun and telling the story. Like, if I ever tell a story, I am never going to do well if I'm not enjoying the story that I tell, or I don't think the story is interesting. So, like, for example, for me, the thing that brings me the most joy when telling stories is if the story has humor or is funny. So, like, I do best when I tell those kinds of stories. If anyone is trying something else, maybe they like intensity or adventure, anything, just you have to find what you like most and pursue it.
What a great piece of advice. Tell the story that's on your heart. Tell the story that makes you laugh. Tell the story that makes others laugh. What beautiful advice. Let's go to Rhea.
The piece of advice I would give is to take a deep breath and tell a story that comes from your heart.
Exactly. Comes from your heart. Echo the same story, the resonance, because, and I've heard it, if you're telling a story just because someone told you to tell it, it's not going to have that heart piece to it. Let's go to Hajar.
I think storytelling isn't just for entertainment. It can also be tradition. It can be used to teach and to speak up for yourself and for others.
Excellent. Excellent. And think about that. Storytelling is used for tradition, and that story can speak up for others as advocacy. What a beautiful gift to remember that story teaches us when we tell. And let's hear from Nisa.
Before I say anything, I just want to say thank you so much, Kevin, for having me here, because I'm really liking this, and I really appreciate it. And I think the only advice that I would give to anybody, not just you tellers, anybody, but specifically you tellers, would be that just go for it and just go for that story that is in your head, in your heart, and with you. And that story that has, just everything all with you, tradition and memories, and a story is like a travel book, so to spread that open and share it with the world. I think that I'm really afraid of that.
Story is a travel book, so we can open it and share it. Excellent. And I'll give and I will carry two pieces of advice. The first one is, wherever you are in storytelling, look behind you and help somebody get to where you are and beyond. Because the greatest gift that we can give is to turn around and say, let me help you on this journey to move into story. Because if all we're worried about is where we are, we won't move forward, because it is a collective, co-creative art when we see it that way. So let's use our stories to help others create new tellers, new directions. The last thing I'll tell you is come see these amazing people on debut, the fusion of storytelling and play. The future is in good hands because they're carrying the tales. They are amazing. You're seeing a little bit of it here on the interview. Now, what should they do, folks? They should come where to? They come where? They come to?
Debut!
Debut! We'll see you at debut. Peace out. Cheers to all.
Yes.
All right.
All right.